Death does not want you today. Death does not want you today. Death in the oceans and rivers and up in dank clouds of morning, in deserts far away, in dark forests without music, in barrooms with sudden laughter, in the minds of young and old, in your neighborhood and across the water. Death does not want you today. And that should be enough. And that should...
Word Music is Tony Nesca's first spoken word album. Culled from his extensive collection of poems and stories, Nesca reads his work as it was meant to be represented. Words as music, and plays electric guitar as accompaniment to his own work. The words come out in Nesca's raspy, whiskey voice as incendiary white light, white heat, steam of urban consciousness, both lyrical and street tough, often in the same breath. The guitar is dirty, low-down blues and rock, raw, bare, gritty, passionate, and intense, like nothing else out there. Word Music takes you through a literary rock and roll landscape, ranging from childhood memories to blues bars on dingy street corners, always alive, always raw, and always energetic. Today we join Tony Nesca.
As a kid in the 70s in Winnipeg's Little Italy, living right across from my school, small house, tiny patch of green for a yard, neighbors eating their capicola fried pepper sandwiches on the back porch, blue prairie sky ever present, working class Joes mowing their lawns, in the forbidden sex game behind closed doors. Us kids and mom watching my old man from front window as he came from teacher-parent meetings, trying to judge from his walk whether news good or bad, whether sunshine, Big Papa living cool and easy, and the small unnoticed moment alive and well. I can still hear the lost out-of-tune harmonica blowing the Blitzkrieg blues. I can still see my cousin Max running from the dog, my older brother moving in that cynical 1970s groove, my mother smiling sadly, my great-grandmother leaning to one side, my old man angry and forlorn, my grandfather working a night shift in my parents' bakery shop, and those damn dogs roaming the neighborhood, scaring the shit out of everyone, man.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Social Yet Distance podcast. Today we're talking with Canadian-based writer known for experimental, free-flowing poetry and prose, Tony Nesca. Tony's been known to blend streetwise grit with musical rhythm and raw emotion. And, you know, I could tell you all about his background because I did the research, but I'm going to let him tell you instead. So, hi, Tony, and welcome. Tony Nesca with Screaming Skull Press. Glad to have you here, buddy.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So tell me a little bit about your background and where you came from and how you ended up in Canada and whatever else we need to know going into this.
Okay, well, I was born in northern Italy, in the city of Turin. My parents brought us over at the age of 3, and I was raised in Winnipeg, Canada's Little Italy. However, we moved back to Italy several times during my childhood and adolescence, each time staying, twice we stayed a year, and the last time I did junior high school there for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And I believe it was 1980 or 1981 where we moved back here and stayed. So I've got that bicultural upbringing of both Italian and Canadian. And even when I was being raised in Canada, we were in Little Italy, and my house was 100% Italian. There was like 4 generations, the great grandmother, every single cliche, every single stereotype about Italian families was present in my upbringing, all of it. Let me tell you, man, cliches are true.
Let me say, I know that they are true, and I'll tell you why. My godfather's name is Salvatore Padilla, okay? And he owned a restaurant downtown Atlanta called Salvatore's, a legendary restaurant for years. And I spent many of my formative days in that restaurant. Via Frances would actually be my preference. So I know a little bit about the Northern Italy. I know a little bit about the family. But I've always been a hanger-on, you know. I've always wanted to be Italian.
Wow. The whole world wants to be Italian. We have something in
Yeah, I
common.
did, and because my godfather and my god brother, you know, they are real. They were real human beings with real family values who did the real right thing,
Right.
and they were successful at it. And you know, immigrants came to the country, built a restaurant, you know, made the best food, catered to every star. It was directly across the street from the Fox Theater, and they catered to every star that ever went to the restaurant. I mean, it's
Wow.
typical, you know, movie gangster stuff, you know.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was really fortunate to have that upbringing because it was also right next door to a rock and roll club where I hung out a lot too.
Well,
So
that would have been the best part of it.
it
But
was
Jack,
awesome.
you
There
and I
was a
have something
hole
in
in the
common.
wall between the two. I never paid.
Oh, you and I have something in common because I also grew up. My parents opened up in Winnipeg's Little Italy a bakery shop called the Italian Pastry Shop, and then it was turned into an Italian restaurant for like 30 years. So I grew up literally in a pastry shop and then an Italian restaurant, just like you, hanging out at young. And my uncle's name is Salvatore, by the way. So we have things in common
all,
here.
all uncles and godfathers are.
Salvatore. But and then we settled in Winnipeg, and I taught myself how to play guitar. A typical rock and roll story in the basement, listening to blues and Led Zeppelin and all that stuff, and formed an original band where we wrote our own songs, and I was a professional musician for very low grade, never went on tour, just local B the B scene in Winnipeg. We couldn't play the A scene because we didn't do covers. We didn't do mainstream covers. We did covers like from the Clash or or stuff
Right,
like
right.
that. But it wasn't what mainstream in 1980 people wanted to hear. Um, and then I started getting the bug for writing. I wrote songs, but I didn't write lyrics. I only wrote the music. The singer wrote the lyrics, and then I started getting the bug to write to write words, not lyrics, to write poetry, short stories, so on. And eventually, I I found that I did not like being on stage. I never vocalized this to any other band members at the time. But when I told them recently, they were surprised because I still hang out with them. The lead singer has been my closest friend since we were 7 years old, and he still is.
Wow.
So yeah, you're looking at the longest relationship of my life.
That's
An
awesome.
incredible man. Love the guy to death. But I did not like being on stage. I didn't like performing. To this day, I haven't done a live reading. I've done readings like this in interviews. I've done readings on radio shows, but I've never done a live reading because for that reason, I don't like to perform. So at one point, I decided I traded my guitar for the cheapest computer in the world. I don't know how old you are if you remember Commodore 64.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I started on the Commodore
I I
64.
I had an Odyssey gaming platform, which was a cellophane that you taped to your TV and played Pong.
I remember Pong.
It didn't even have a screen. You had to tape it to the TV.
I had a little black and white TV for a screen. There was a wire that ran from the Commodore 64 into it. But and I found that writing, like working alone and writing like that is works better for me. Although I just started making a rock and roll album. My next project is going to be an actual rock and roll record. I'm going to play all the instruments. It's only bass and guitar, anyways, and I'm going to do the drums digital. And I don't know yet who's going to sing it. I've never sang. I don't think I can, but I've started writing the songs and it's going that way. So that was how I made the transition from music to writing.
Well, you know, it's a natural progression. Is what I hear, and I can tell you from hearing your work, you got the chops for it. I would find it hard to believe that you couldn't sing if that's what you opted to do. I also rapidly picked up on the idea that you're about the quality of what you're offering to an audience, and um, that just was apparent in listening to your work. And so I think that you've
Thank
done
you, Jack.
very well in meeting those goals. And whatever you got in the future, you certainly have the chops to do with that whatever you want.
Thank you
Um,
so much. Thank you.
I mean, I have to say that I am somewhat jealous because I have often thought that I would like to resort back to an older school way of doing poetry, perhaps an album, but something with some musical background, a la,
Yeah,
you know, William S. Burroughs or,
Jack
Kerouac
Kerouac.
or, any of these other guys, all the
Yeah.
old guys.
Oh,
Um,
they're the best. They're the
and
best. There's no modern day
I mean, I
equivalent.
remember growing up and there being poetry albums in my dad's collection.
Yeah,
You know,
totally. Me
my dad
too.
would
Yeah.
never admit that he liked poetry, but if it's Sammy Davis Jr. to that swing man, then
Sure, sure.
it's poetry to me.
Oh, it's fantastic. And the way that our band was set up, we would have the songs done, but then we were an alternative rock band. But it was strange because we were kind of mixed with classic rock. Because if you heard the songs, if you heard the verse and the chorus, you would think this is an alternative rock band. But then when it came time in the middle to solos, we would jam, which alternative rock bands did not do in the 80s. As a matter of fact, they, hello, you there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Okay, but do we have to wait or?
Yeah, sit tight.
Oh, no problem. Jack, I'll be right back in 2 minutes.
Can you still hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. You can go do what you need to do. We'll take a break.
just
I'm
one
going to
minute.
edit it, so it's cool.
Yeah, be right back.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah, man. Welcome back.
Perfect.
Hey, yeah, we can just pick up where we were, man. I don't
So
know.
as I was, yeah, what were we
Um,
saying?
let's do this, Tony. Um, I know that your music has been big in your early career, and you started picking up writing. Once that happened, how do you think that your life really changed? And do you consider the direction of your art making a big shift, or is it just another piece of the puzzle that you're adding in?
Um, I was always headed for like a creative life. I drew when I was a kid. I started playing guitar in my adolescence. Always a big reader, always a big movie buff. I knew I was going to do something like that. I believed that I was going to do it full time without having to work, but that didn't work out. I read recently, Jack, that only something like 10 or 11% of writers of fiction make a living from it. So, I mean, that helps me because even the famous ones are professors or teachers. Like, it's really, really, really hard to pay your rent, even to make a working class wage. We calculated once, I think it was something like we would have to sell 1,000 books a month, every single month, just to make like a minimum wage working class thing. But
Right.
no, I was always headed for that creative life. So it wasn't like it changed anything because I was headed in that direction. But I also went to university for 4 years. I was a psych major and a literature minor. I didn't like it, Jack. I think honestly that I was just delaying entering the real world. I didn't get off on it at all, and I was playing in a band at the same time. Like my band was like my part-time job while I was a university student. I went for
Right.
4 years, did full 4 years, and then in the summer I would have finished it. I would have gotten a degree in my fifth year. I just dropped out. I said, no, I'm going to write. I wanted to write. I'm sure you've heard this before. Academia is not conducive to creative writing. All the writers that they taught in English school, I liked maybe 2% of them.
Right.
They didn't teach Henry Miller. They barely touched on the beats.
Right.
Hunter Thompson was nowhere mentioned. Virginia Woolf was just a tiny little line somewhere. Like, come on, man. Like, all the writers that I admired, all the creators that I admired were not even mentioned. And even the people that were taking these classes weren't into these same writers.
Right.
it wasn't for me, you know. So 4 years later, $25,000 student loan in debt, I just dropped out. I said, the hell with it. And I fully said to myself, I am devoting my entire life to being a writer. At the time, I didn't think musician because there was a 12-year gap where I stopped playing guitar
Right.
when I started writing. And then from the age of 28 to 40, I didn't touch a guitar. And then at 40, I started playing again. But I said, I'm going to be a writer, regardless of what. And I knew that I would have to get jobs. So I just got shitty jobs here and there, right? You got a job. And then there were ways in Canada, I don't know if this exists in the US, where you could like quit your job and collect unemployment insurance for a while back then. Now it doesn't exist anymore. So I would do that. I had that down to an art. And then for 6 months, I'd collect unemployment insurance and I was a writer. I loved it. All I'm doing is writing, man. And I'm getting it. And then eventually you have to go get another job. I don't think I can get arrested for this anymore because marijuana is legal, but I was a pot dealer off and on for many years.
Right.
Uh, Only pot. I didn't touch any other stuff. I actually, the last hard drug I did, I was, I think, 20 years old. I stopped all hard drugs really, really early. I was never addicted or anything, but I did them for pleasure, for fun.
Right.
And the rest of the time, it's only pot and alcohol. But yeah,
Well,
it was.
I think, running in those circles, it's inevitable you're going to have experiences with those stories. I mean,
I, I saw bandmates. I saw hard drugs.
right,
I've seen them up close, and I've seen what they did. And to be honest with you, they kind of started terrifying me in
right,
my 20s, especially the world that I was in. Even at a very minor level, when you're playing in a rock band, it's all that shit is there where people want to party with you, people want to be around you, the people in the bar, this, that, guys, girls, let's go do this, let's go do that. How about this drug? How about that? I saw hard drugs destroy not just individuals, but entire families,
oh
like
yeah,
entire friendships, lives. And I'm not against drugs by no means. I'm pro choice about everything across the board. But I know my personality. I knew I had to stay away from hard drugs.
right.
Absolutely. I drank
Well,
enough, smoked enough pot to make up for it.
well, as long as you got that. I mean,
I gotta have something, man.
I took care of the cocaine and the quaaludes for you, so I think the world is
Beautiful,
safe at this point.
beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, but I will give you this one piece of advice. If you think that the world of fiction is hard, try poetry, my friend.
Oh God, I know. Most of my books are poetry books. It's almost impossible. I think there was a brief window in the 1920s or maybe the 1960s where poets, those 2 decades, where poets were selling more. As a matter of fact, Jack, I have an interesting story. Nicole and I, the whole time that we published, we stopped doing it now, but we used to send our work out before we self-published it ourselves to
Hmm,
publishers. And
hmm.
the usual rejection letters, and I just don't have the patience to wait for that. That's why I started self-publishing. I realized I would be old before I would even see a book out there. So fuck it, no more.
Right.
You got a rejection letter from one publisher. I wish I would have kept it because it was so cool. It said, um, "I love your work." Speaking to both of us, but I just don't know how to sell it. I don't know how to get her. And then he said he ended it saying, "If this were the '60s or the '70s, you guys would be making bags of money." And I thought that was just, I completely believe that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and I would call that high praise, actually.
Well, I grew up in the '70s. I mean, I was a child in the '70s, but my early teens started in the late '70s. I remember it vividly. I call it the last cool decade.
Yeah. I
I,
remember flipping through books on my dad's shelf like Bukowski, and it was
mm,
some of the novels and stuff. It wasn't the poetry stuff, but it was some of the other things that he wrote.
yeah, yeah.
And that kind of writing. Esquire magazine was always around, and you know, naturally, a teenage boy, I want to read that for the obvious intellectual purposes, but they had some good articles that taught me a lot about the world of music and that kind of thing. So um, you can never put your finger on where that inspiration is going to come from. You
No,
know,
no, yeah.
the whole
Bukowski,
channel, social yet distance, exists because I kind of had a similar situation as yours. I got tired of writing and submitting things or not getting the attention or focus that I felt like I should for my words.
Right,
That
right.
I wanted those stories to be told though, regardless.
Yeah, yeah.
So I started doing little cartoons and this and that, the video representations of my words. And so if you dig through there, you will find that, yeah, there's the podcast stuff, and yeah, there's my, cannabis health stuff that I do. And then there's the backlog of all my work,
Right,
well represented and explained. And it even doesn't feel like me when I watch it. You know what I'm
right.
saying?
I
And I'm
do.
able to appreciate the art. So I can only imagine if I wanted to stick only to words, how hard and long a process that would be for me. Whereas now I just grab the words and put some pictures with it and read it, and I'm done.
You're an artist?
Oh
You're a
yeah, dude.
cartoonist?
Yeah, I'll send you links. I got all kind of stuff out there.
Well, I'm thinking this is for a separate, I'm just stepping aside here. I've always wanted to do a graphic novel, but I can't draw well enough. Keep in mind, maybe you and I can do a graphic novel together.
We need to talk about that because that's been one
Yes,
of my
because
secret
I have a
ideas too.
script. I already have a script. I'm dying to do it.
Okay,
So
cool.
this is great.
Cool, cool. All right. You heard it here first, guys. Coming soon
Right on.
to a theater near you where you got to pay big money.
Beautiful.
All right, so let's talk about this. I mean, I think we all kind of, between you and myself and the audience, we all kind of understand this path that you've traveled.
Yes,
So now you end up with Nicole and the press. Tell me a little bit about how that whole thing came together.
absolutely. Well, Screamin Press I founded by myself in 1994 to publish my chapbooks. My first six books were chapbooks, 50 pages of poetry and short stories. This was before the internet. Actually, the first few chapbooks were before the internet, and the rest were when the internet was still, if you remember, at cafe shops. You'd have to go pay
Oh
a
yeah.
dollar. And people didn't have it at home, and I would do those all like print up 200 copies of my book, and I would sell them, literally sell them out of my knapsack at street
Hmm.
corners, at dive bars that I hung out at. I would send letters to bookstores around the country, blah, 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 blah. Nicole, I didn't meet until 2007. And then in 2008, we got married, and then she joined Screamin Press. But I must say, since she joined, it gave it credibility because it was no longer just one man. It, it no
Right.
longer could be mistaken for an ego trip of one man, demanding that the world be listened to. Now it was two of us. Similar ideas. We're both leftists politically and ideologically. We both liked the same writers. We both loved rock and roll, blues, jazz, all that music that informs my writing, informs hers. My book sales increased like unbelievably when Nicole joined, when it became two of us. And I think that's really where Screamin Price became more of a guy in a garage and actually something that was credible, like where we have distributors and we talk to other writers in Europe, blah 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 blah, blah all that
Right.
stuff. So um, Nicole has been a fantastic addition to my life professionally and personally. She's an incredible writer. She just got her paintings on Saatchi Art. She's a painter. She's focusing more on painting now
Wow.
than writing. So we would like to do like an art showing, book showing together, and all that stuff. So, and we're going strong, better than ever.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now with the press, do you take submissions from outsiders?
We only did once. We published an anthology of I think it was 12 writers. Called Howls from the Underground.
Mm.
It's still available, but the experience wasn't positive in terms of dealing with other people. You can imagine dealing with writers, and it was the sort of same experience I had in a band. Working with other creative minds, it's
Right.
always a fucking problem, and it kind of soured me. So at the moment, we don't really have the resources to publish other writers. Like we wouldn't know how to promote. other
Right.
writers. You need money to do all that stuff. So it's basically just for us. But we've been published along the way, like
Sure.
many times by other publishing companies that have either gone defunct or, been around. So at the moment, no, we're not going to publish other writers.
Well, I don't see anything in the world wrong with that, one way
No,
or the other. That's your call. It's a business decision, and more
yeah,
importantly, it allows you the opportunity to be true to your art, which is,
mm,
I think, the most
absolutely.
important thing. You know, I think we end up in spots like this because we have at least some illusion that we have something to say.
Right.
And based on that alone, meeting that goal needs to become enough. If I'm able to say that and it's able to be heard somewhere, then fine. And if not, it's really none of my business. I'm still saying what I need to say.
Yeah,
And
I hear you, man. I
I'm
hear you.
not living with it,
No,
I purged it in whatever way. It's like I said earlier, I started writing because a shrink called me an emotional orphan and and suggested that I journal, and I started doing that. And um, you know, as I continued to work through those tools, they were, cleaned and shaved and painted and glossed to be something a little bit more palatable than the rough spot it came out of me in the rough shape it was in when it came out. So um, I think that we all kind of enjoy that. And I think you're doing some great stuff, which brings me to the latest project. Um, I've been just kind of bowled over for the past couple of days listening to the work that you've put together, and I'd like for you to talk about that and its inception and um, your intentions to distribute it and plans for the future and how people can come and find it and all those kind of things. Because that's the one thing I want to make sure we do get out is that there's some work here that needs to be heard, and I think that
well, thank you, Jack. Thank you.
we need to
Are
do
you talking about my latest book
yes,
or my work in general? Oh, the latest book, Poems and Photographs.
yeah,
Yeah, that oh man, it's I spent 3 years taking pictures of New York and Winnipeg. Went to New York 3 times, and then 1 year writing the book. So 4 years of my life. Now, if you consider that most of my books are written more in a quick improvisational style, like one of my novels I wrote in 8 weeks, and
mm,
I only edited most of my work, not all of it, because I don't want to work always in the same way. I don't want to
right.
be known as Tony Nesca as that writer that does blank, blank, blank. I want to be able to do many things. But most of my work, I only do one rewrite. I believe in the Jack Kerouac mentality that you don't want, I don't like pieces of work that feel like they've been carved over and over and looked at because that's not the pure emotion coming out of the writer. The pure emotion that comes out of the writer is the immediacy. When we played in a band, every single solo that I ever did, and we were a band that did a lot of solos, was improvised like 100%. The only way the band knew that we were going back to the verse is that there would be a little trigger on the guitar, a few notes, where I would look at the band and they would know, okay, let's go back. And I write the same way most of the time, not all of the time. My novel Calabrito took a year and a half, rewritten many times. Poems and Photographs was not that way. I rewrote it many times. I gave it serious consideration. And the way it was born is because I had this long distance love affair with New York City my whole life. As a kid, I was always a movie buff. Growing up in the '70s, cross-legged on the living room floor, watching the black and white TV. My whole life, TV programs, movies, and I always read a lot. And when I was a kid, of course, reading comic books, it was all in New York. The city looked like a fantasy to me. And then as I got older, of course, came Martin Scorsese movies, Woody Allen movies. And then when I got even older, came all the writers that wrote about New York and all the bands. I mean, punk rock was born in New York, and everything comes from New York. When I thought Nicole, being from Ohio, had been New York several times. Youngstown and New York are close. She had already been there several times, but not for many years. I remember reading that when Henry Miller first went to Paris, his friend said that his brow unfurrowed and he immediately was in the groove of the city. It was exactly the same way for me in New York. I landed in New York. Not only did it meet my expectations, it went far beyond my expectation. I was in love within 25 minutes. I
Mhm.
just loved the city. I was in groove with it. I was in step with it. I just kept on saying to Nicole, I can't believe I didn't come here sooner. I mean, this city is, if there's a city in the world with the name Tony Nesca on it, it's New York. And so I started taking pictures, not thinking I was going to do anything creative with it, just taking pictures. And I noticed architecturally, first of all, how many places look like Winnipeg. Now, I know this sounds strange because you're thinking Winnipeg, a medium sized city in the Canadian prairies, but very, very similar to New York. Architecturally, downtown, we have that late 19th century, earliest 20th century kind of Art Deco thing happening.
I
New
love
York
it.
has a
Yeah.
ton of it. Greenwich Village and Soho, even Little Italy in New York, like just has a ton of that. And I kept on saying to Nicole, man, that looks like the Exchange District in Winnipeg. That looks like Graham and Ford in Winnipeg. So I started taking pictures, and then we went back to Winnipeg, and I noticed, holy shit, man! I mean, these two places look alike in the urban area of Winnipeg, look alike without the tall buildings, of course. If you
Mhm.
keep the camera low, Winnipeg can look like New York. But it's
Mhm.
not just that. Every city, like every human being, has a personality. It has a soul, a spirit, a sort of vibe. I started noticing that in Midtown New York, for example, the street people, the way New Yorkers, the way that street person vibe, junkies and all that is kind of interwoven. Like you'll see a guy in a briefcase walking down Broadway beside um, a, a street person, a junkie, like lying in a corner, and then you'll see a well-dressed family going to a Broadway show again beside a junkie, beside a beggar, beside.
Mhm.
Winnipeg's the same way. As a matter of fact, Jack, this is going to surprise you. There are more, not statistically, but visually, there are more street people in downtown Winnipeg than anything I saw in Manhattan. And I went
Mhm.
all over Manhattan, like I mean all over Manhattan. I hung out, I went to bars, and like downtown Winnipeg feels rougher than anything I saw in Manhattan. Anything. I felt that the two cities had that street feel, that street corner, and the ethnic diversity, which I've always loved. Winnipeg is as ethnically diverse as it gets, just as much as New York. New
Cool.
York does not have more. Winnipeg doesn't have more. You go to downtown Winnipeg on a street corner, you're looking at the United Nations. And I like that. I grew up that way.
Right.
And I saw that in New York. And for the most part, getting along. For the most part, of course, right? There are always racist assholes out there. But for the most part, it works. You know, it kind of works. I saw the similarity. I thought, this is a project. I got to do this, man. I got to start writing it down. The writing came out smoothly. That's the genesis of poems and photographs.
That's it's you describe that emotion attached to a city, and I'm sitting here thinking about my own experience. I am an Atlanta, Georgia native, and
Right.
like I know that city like the back of my hand. But what I saw happen, starting with the Olympics, was the entire tenor of the town started changing.
Oh,
And it started to no longer feel like home. People
in what way?
changed.
Like in what way?
Everything was about expansion and get bigger and
Oh,
more. And when I was a kid, it was much different. Although the history we were given wasn't accurate as it should have been. Um,
right.
the suburban life and um, going to the city and things like that were a different time.
Mm.
And so after I went through my periods of like running the streets in downtown Atlanta and going to all the clubs, and I was a regular at the all the punk clubs and the rock and roll bars. I was a regular at all those places, and I went through all that stuff and got I quit drinking and quit doing drugs and changed my life. And I just started noticing that Everybody else was getting meaner.
Really, eh?
It
Don't
was
you find
just,
that that's a global thing though right now?
I don't know. I didn't equate it to that at the time, but
Yeah,
I tell you what the final straw was. I used back roads all the time because I grew up there.
yeah.
So I go on this back road that I had driven my entire life, and I got caught in a traffic jam from all the office buildings that had been built in the woods where I used to play
Oh,
in the mall that was there. And I got trapped in this traffic jam, and I got so frustrated because it took me 2 hours to go what used to be a shortcut.
oh boy. Oh, how you gonna stop that, man? That kind of change is, yeah,
I was so frustrated and aghast at the whole thing. And it had been building, starting with a divorce. That might have had something to do with it too. But um, I immediately fled the city. I
wow,
left.
wow,
That's how I got back down here. I had lived here before, but that's how I got back to Florida was I had to flee that energy that you're talking about. And
yeah,
to feel that, to hear you talk about that in two different places, I laugh because I know there's buildings in Atlanta that are just like what you're describing. Because I
yeah,
know architecture and I know the style. And
yeah.
so, like, Art Deco was my thing.
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
So, and I used to buy and sell Art Deco furniture when I was um, playing Scarface at night. So, um, you know,
Scarface at night. I gotcha.
so I understand a lot about Art Deco because it was hot at the time and nobody had really gotten turned on to it yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we had like, bamboo Florida rooms and shit like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know,
But that street feel that I felt like yourself, I was never addicted or homeless, but I know the streets of Winnipeg. My whole adult life was spent living in the ghetto, and I mean, not trapped in the ghetto, but living there because it was the cheapest place to live, and I kind of dug the people, and it was a cool place. There were, like you said, there were punk rock bars all over the place. I would sell my books on the corner. I know the
right?
streets, and I befriended street people. I'm completely comfortable with them. And New York, Midtown Manhattan, especially. You've been there, right?
No, I've never been to New York even.
Oh, you've never been to New York. Well, Midtown
Don't tell
Manhattan.
anybody.
Yeah, that's all right, man. Midtown Manhattan. It just reminded me so much of downtown, like the indifference. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but the indifference that people had towards street people in downtown Winnipeg was the same as I saw in Midtown Manhattan. Nicole and
Yeah.
I were in Times Square. There were people celebrating. We were celebrating. We were sitting around. I was baking pot right in the middle of the whole thing. And there was a guy literally laying prostrate on the ground with a blanket over his head. And I remember I stopped and I said to Nicole, well, should we call an ambulance or something? People were literally stepping over him and
Hmm.
around him. I don't mean to say that New Yorkers are cold to do this because in Winnipeg, it's exactly the same. It's not about being cold or being warm or being caring. It's about that it's such a, uh, for lack of a better word, normal fixture
Right.
on the street that it's just something you see all the time. You don't even the people don't even think like should I call an ambulance for this person because every single day there's somebody lying on this street corner on the ground, you know, and I just thought it needed. I wanted to put my own voice on. I know a lot of great writers have written about New York, and as a matter of fact, if you go on my social media, our social media, Nicole and I posted when I got back to New York that I was intimidated about writing about New York because so many great writers had written about New York. One of my favorite albums of all the time, New York by Lou Reed. And it's intimidating, but people have told me, but that's not your voice.
Right.
You can write about New York not as somebody who lives there, but somebody who's only gone there a few times and they're feeling from it. So it's a mixture. To me, New York was a mix of the magical
Hmm.
and the street and the street and the ugly. Don't get me wrong. I'm not glorifying it. It's New York City. There's plenty of ugly. There's plenty of desperation, but there's plenty of music and history and
Right.
electricity shooting through the air, and you get that in parts of Winnipeg as well.
Well, what's weird is like when I think about me not going to New York, part of the reason why I never made the big effort to do it is because if I was going to New York, I'd want to go and hang out with Patti Smith and Warhol, and
Oh God, of
you know,
course.
I mean
That's
that,
our New York. That's the
and
New York that Nicole and I love. That one.
that's the
Yeah,
one I would want to go to. So I
yeah,
feel like
yeah.
anything other than that would be disappointing.
But you can still see it though, Jack. You can still get. I mean, New
Oh,
York is. Yeah, it's
absolutely.
safe. No, I was.
They
I
get ice out of there, I will.
Yeah. Well, I read recently that it's the safest city statistically, the
Mhm.
safest big city in the United States. And I'll tell you, Jack, all three times that I went, at any time of day or night, not once did I feel physically threatened. Not once did I see anybody where, wow, this is scary. But I'm coming from Winnipeg, which is a tough
Right,
city. Um, no, not I felt I couldn't believe how a city of 12 million people could feel that safe.
right.
Really an incredible job. But yeah, the New York that you mentioned, Patti Smith and the world, that's the New York, obviously, that we love. But you can still feel it. You can even beyond
Well,
all
and
the
that's the part that I punish
yeah.
myself with is that, these thoughts of such without actually taking any action is gonna, will put me in my grave one day.
Oh well, shit, man! You walk through Greenwich Village. You walk down McDougal or Bleecker Street. All our idols, you and I, all the writers and musicians that we love, all busted their teeth in Greenwich Village. I mean, Bob Dylan started off there. The Beats would be
Exactly.
reading their shit there. I mean, it all comes from New York City.
Absolutely. No more CBGBs, baby.
No, no more CBGBs. That's the sad part.
Well, so are you happy where you're at right now? What would you change?
I am very happy. What I would change is to be a full-time writer and to quit this lousy shit job that I've had for so many years. Besides that, I, well, globally, I would change things.
Sure.
When people ask me if I'm pessimistic or optimistic, I'm neither. I'm both. I'm optimistic about my life and the people in it. I'm very pessimistic about the human race in the
Mhm.
long run. Even though I told you earlier that I believe the United States will come out of this, I don't see the human race as being able to resolve their problems. I don't see anything in past history or current behavior that would lead anyone to think that we're going to rise above all of this eventually. I don't see how. I think we're doomed. Not in our lifetime, probably not even in the next generation's lifetime, but I think ultimately we're doomed. So what's there left to do? Enjoy.
You're going to be pessimistic or optimistic, or you could be altruistic.
Altruistic is the best.
That's the
Do
best
some, do
because
things
that at
for
least guarantees that you have a good ride while you're here.
absolutely, man. Yeah, be creative and enjoy, and that's all. That's all. You know.
Dude, I don't know that
Yeah.
we need to say anything other than that. Any final words other than surely you want to tell us where to buy your books and such.
Yes. Our webpage, screaminskullpress.net, and just click on the bookstore link. It's under construction right now. There are only two books there, but even if you contacted us through PayPal, you can get all our books, and then at the usual online places. But we also have a distributor. Like there could be a chance that it's at your local bookstore, and if it's not, any bookstore in the world can order our books because we have Ingram distribution, and any library in the world can order our books. So if you're the type of person that doesn't want to order online, would rather go somewhere, which is us, go to the library. You don't have to pay nothing. Get them to order it. We get paid anyways, and you don't have to pay anything. And the library will pick up our books. So, and I'm doing
That's
a book launch. I'm doing a book launch in April locally, and then we're thinking of doing something that will involve Nicole's paintings and Screamin' Skull Press all together. And I'm hoping that myself and you can do a graphic novel.
I think it's an excellent idea, and I also am sitting here thinking about Nicole's art and how we might be able to highlight that a little bit as well,
For
maybe on a
sure.
different podcast as well.
Yeah, yeah, well appreciated.
It would be a little bit more creative than what we've put together here, but I think we
Yeah.
could do it no problem.
Oh yeah,
It's a matter of having the artwork and dropping it in place and,
for sure,
putting
for
what
sure.
we need with it. So I would be excited for anything in the future, my friend, and I am so glad that you made it today. I appreciate your time today, and I hope that we can sell some books for you.
Oh,
Um,
Jack, I've enjoyed this immensely. Thank you.
well, thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to say goodbye to the rest of the folks, and you sit tight, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with me and Tony today. I think we had a great call. I hope that you guys enjoyed your time with us. And make sure to follow up with Screaming Skull dot net, was it, Tony?
Yes, screaminsaltpress.net.
Screaming Skull Press dot net, and buy some books. That's what this is really all about, is to make sure that the words get in the hands of the people that need it. And by God, you're looking a little frail, so I think you probably need some good words. Thanks for hanging with us today, guys, and we appreciate you being here on the Social Yet Distance podcast.